This is my challenge. You strike a nerve when you say this because we live in the most abundant resource society to ever exist. Ever. As we know it. When you want something, you can figure it out. You can YouTube it, you can chat GTP it, you can call somebody, you can text somebody a picture saying how I fixed this. So where's the pitfall is, where's the work ethic? I'm gonna say things that are gonna piss people off. It's like, we were raised in a fucking opposite of resilient society and lazy.
Hey everyone, welcome to Beyond the Build, the podcast where innovation meets collaboration in the world of construction. We bring together thought leaders and industry experts to explore the cutting-edge ideas transforming construction equipment, supply chains, building materials, and workforce productivity.
This podcast is proudly brought to you by Faro, the revolutionary last-mile logistics platform, redefining how high-value, time-sensitive construction deliveries get done. Need it fast? Need it right? Faro.
Today, we're joined by Jonathan Cinelli, the founder of People First Leadership and a project management professional, PMP. With over 20 years of experience in the construction industry, Jonathan's work focuses on integrating people-centric leadership with construction expertise, helping teams, project managers, and leaders improve communication, build trust, and drive productivity. Jonathan is also a certified coach and an advocate for mental wellness and sustainable growth in construction businesses. He specializes in fostering intrinsic motivation, improving team dynamics, and addressing the tough, uncomfortable issues that often go unspoken but are crucial for long-term success. His insights and methods have empowered countless teams to move past toxic cultures, enhance leadership effectiveness, and drive better results on construction projects. Today, we'll discuss the people side of construction, why culture matters, and how focusing on leadership and trust can radically transform the construction, logistics, and third-party hauling sectors. Jonathan, welcome to Beyond the Build.
Thanks, JP. That's a lot to take on, so I appreciate you for that. Slow clap on that one. Holy smokes, well done. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
You know, as we get into these conversations with your expertise about changing culture, the classics, teaching people that, your character is built in the valleys, not on the mountaintops, and you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I think that's finding people's why, what motivates them. That's always the challenge, right?
Do you think people know, and I don't want to, you can interrupt me and cut me off and tell me to shut up anytime you want. If you got an agenda, if we got an agenda we got to follow, JP, you got to tell me, right? But Scott, you triggered something for me, right? And it's like, do people even understand their why? We hear that so frequently. Like, find your why. What does that actually mean? And how much work are you willing to dig to learn what that means to you and ask yourself tough questions and then keep asking yourself tough questions?
Yeah, I think it triggers a lot of things, right? Like, you can even say, do we back up or forward? I ask people all the time, like, what's your brand? And I think that stems to about what's your why. And the challenge is what I think of my brand, my audience might think the same thing. So I got to reinvert and be like, wait a second, I think I'm a strong leader that's empathetic, that listens well and really tunes in. And people are like, yeah, you're a strong leader. You kind of use the whole, like, you have two mouths and one ear and it should be reversed. So now I'm like, wow, is that how am I perceived? And then you circle back to your why and go, wait, if I want to be a servant leader that's humble and unapologetic, am I actually like conveying that when I'm interacting with people? And so now you're trying to basically marry the two positions where, like, your brand and the why, and are they equally yoked?
I'm here for you guys. So thank you. Thanks for making this happen.
Yeah, it's our pleasure. One thing I noted here that you're an electrician, or were an electrician, right? How many years were you in that industry?
Well, I was born into the industry, so I started scrubbing toilets at 6 years old and started sorting boxes, and then pivoted through the entire industry my entire life. I used to call myself a retired electrician now because I no longer want to. Can you come and do my basement? Can you come? No, man, I don't. My pliers are seized.
I was going to say when we open this up that you look too young to be retired.
Oh no, well, a retired electrician because for that exact reason. I'm far from
Yeah.
it. I've got a lot of. I work hard behind the scenes to ensure that I can show up, and that is one of my things in life. You talk about your why. For me, it's so deep. But part of that is doing the uncomfortable stuff because I don't know if we're swearing or not here, but doing the
You're
uncomfortable.
allowed. Permission granted. Permission to
thank
swear
you.
granted.
Well, some people are very particular, but it's doing the fucking hard shit behind the scenes that doesn't ever get recognized. So no, I'm not retired. I have a lot to offer this world, a tremendous amount to offer this world.
Before we dive into kind of more meat, I have a couple of stories that might lead, not stories, questions, excuse me, that might lead to some stories. I'm just curious because I've met a number of tradespeople in my day, and a lot of times they have, fun tales to tell. And one question that I've heard about electricians especially is it true that 90% of electrical work is figuring out what the last guy did?
The short answer is yes, but the longer answer is, isn't that part of sort of just human nature? Every encounter we come in, no two brains think the same, right? So whether I'm an electrician, a plumber, a drywaller, or any other professional, half the troubleshooting, more than half of the time, is like, what did this guy do? Right? And how does he think? Because Jonathan doesn't think the same way Sam thinks. No two brains are going to think the same. We know that. So, yeah, but you're right. You come in here, what the fuck is going on here? Why would you bring it over there? Just bring it right here. Well, okay, but the guy obviously used something different.
And then you got a business owner building houses back in the 80s. It's like, nope, we're going to put everything on one loop. We'll have one GFI somewhere. No one will know where it's at. Like, doesn't matter. It's cost cutting. I got 50 houses to build in a tract. Do you know how much it's going to cost for me to put GFIs in every single one of those? And then in commercial building, here's the funny thing, because I was in it for so long, was you ever walk through an airport and you're wondering why there's like a partition or a cutout on a wall somewhere, and you're like, is that supposed to be there? And you're like, oh yeah, it's supposed to be for someone to lean up against. You're like, nope, that wasn't supposed to be there. There was something with the utilities electrical, or they were like, we missed something and now we gotta hide it. And so now you got this like funky wall coming out that people think it's part of the aesthetics. And you're like, no, that was a mix up between plumbing, HVAC, or electrical. Somebody got something off. But you don't see it until you've seen the skeleton, right? And walking big commercial projects, like seen it from the ground to the concrete to the wet utilities to the dry, and you're like, if you even knew what was in those walls and how it was laid out, because people just see the aesthetics, they see the finished result, and they think, I don't know, it works.
I think this is the biggest challenge with, I'm going to say our current society today and younger folks. I mean, I have young nephews that are in their 20s and like, guys, you want to get, we talk about construction. They look at me with, Zio, why would I want to get into construction? The hell for? I'm like, what? What are you talking about, boys? Because there's there's a lack of appreciation of structure. There's a lack of appreciation of how things are built. There's a lack of appreciation of how things are created. Well, we live in a society where you push a button, stuff shows up at your door. You push a button, food shows up. Our articles show up. I'm like, oh yeah, did you get it from Amazon? Where do you think the infrastructure for that comes from? Where's the warehouse? Chicken doesn't come from the grocery store. You know how the process of getting a chicken?
It's the life skills. People look at me and the life skills are just like, so our daughter's 16 and we bought her a manual transmission Jeep. And now kids are like, self-driving cars, what are you talking about? And like, why did you do that? And I said, well, a couple of reasons. Number one, the likelihood of texting and driving is lower because you're constantly shifting. Two, she learned a life skill. And three, I don't have to worry about any of her friends jumping in her car and driving it because they're like, what's this third thing down here on the floor? They don't even know how to do anything with it. So yeah, controlling father, sure. But at the end of the day, like pushing my kids and pushing people around us to be better and to challenge them and saying, listen, you're going to one day hopefully need a life skill. And if your technology shuts off, what are you going to do? Who are you going to yell and scream at to get what you need done? Like, you got to get in there and get it done. I mean, most of the population, if we actually had something that was catastrophic, they wouldn't know how to garden. They wouldn't know how, if it doesn't show up in their doorstep and they can't put it in a refrigerator, they're going to last maybe a week.
And that's the scary part. That's the scary part that pulls on every single one of our heartstrings. And, when we talk about legacies and things that are greater than you and I, and transitioning for me is about transitioning the future, right? I was fortunate to be brought up into construction. I hated it at the time. There's no doubt about it. But without it, the life skills, the pragmatic skills, the troubleshooting abilities, it's like I gotta you have to figure it out. You have to learn how to figure it out, and shit breaks. We live in a consumable society. What happens to say something breaks? You know what people do? Throw it out. Throw it out. What happened to fixing a chair, man? No, I just throw it out. I'll order another one. Put the fucking chair upside down. Put a number 10 screw in it. Figure it out, and it survives. It's how things. It's unfortunately we no longer build 100-year buildings. We no longer have artifacts. Think of how many. I know I talk a lot, but think of how many homes people die in, and this stuff gets thrown out.
I go into people's houses and their doorknobs are off. And I ask, hey, what happened to you? What's wrong with your doorknobs? Oh, it got loose and it fell off and we don't know how to put it back on. And it's just like, I relate to a lot of what you all are saying too. And that it is a result of hyper specialization in the world we live in, where as you become more specialized and individualized as a society, all of the core elements that are the base structure of that society weaken or themselves become a specialization, so that just nobody kind of knows how or what everybody else does. We just all work as a collective, and it happens to work right now. But yeah, if something big happened, we wouldn't, we probably wouldn't last long.
You take that scenario, JP. So this is where it gets down to the core, right? You walk into someone's house and their doorknob's off, and you ask them the question, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to put it back on." Well, wait a second. You can YouTube anything almost. There's somebody going, "Hey, here's how we do it." The question I have is, why haven't you taken the initiative to even try? Because you're not used to where we grew up, and even people before us. If you were thankful or blessed enough to have a mentor to teach you things, kudos to you. But all of us on the call, John, you can resonate, is like automotive work. You know how we figured it out? We took it apart. We tried to break it, and then we were like, where does this go? Like, it was trial and error. We didn't have a YouTube that we could go. We had to go to a book and look at a diagram that someone drew, or we're just like, well, it's put together this way, so I'm going to take it off, and I'm going to remember how I took it off and then put it back together. The first suspension I did where I lifted a truck, I thought I had it done, forgot a cotter pin on one of the top of the A-arms. Driving around, and then boom, the front fell, and I'm like, what happened? And I'm like, oh, I forgot the cotter pin.
Yeah.
Right?
You paid some stupid tax there.
I did. But we had the ability to just like dive in, figure it out, like you said, Jonathan. And today we do have resources. We have the internet. It's been around for how many decades, right? We have people posting on YouTube, a guy in his backyard going, I'm going to show you how to, use a ratchet strap today, or how to turn a screwdriver, or whatever. It's like you have access to this information. But the funny thing is you'll go by their house, you'll see the doorknob off, and then you'll come back 2 weeks later and the doorknob will still be off.
This is my challenge. You strike a nerve when you say this, because we live in the most abundant resource society to ever exist, ever, right? As we know it. When you want something, you can figure it out. You can YouTube it. You can chat GTP it. You can call somebody. You can text somebody a picture. Say, how I fix this, right? So where's the pitfall is, where's the work ethic? And I'm gonna say things that are gonna piss people off. It's like we were raised in a fucking opposite of resilient society and lazy. Like, it's like going to the gym, man. Hey, I want to squat 400 pounds. Okay, start with 5 and do the damn work, because the weight ain't going to lift itself. But fix the damn doorknob. Well, I don't know how. Okay, so now you can research. Here's a Phillips screwdriver, and not a Star. No, look, it's a Phillips, man. It's a Phillips.
Yeah, it comes back to the old adage, and unfortunately, what it in all likelihood is going to take some hard times. But I've told this to Scott before. You've heard this before. You all may have. But that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create bad times, and it's this cycle. And I'm not in complete denial that there is a segment of the population that I would define as in the weaker side of things in terms of at least the context of what we're discussing about in terms of self-reliance, the initiative. That's my dad's favorite word. He'd love to hear me say initiative, because yeah, I definitely feel that's lacking in general.
And that hurts, man, because that's scary. And that's the probable almost certain future is trending that way if we do nothing today.
Well, it does fall on our shoulders and the people that we come in contact with, right? To be those leaders, to show people opportunity. And you've probably heard this before too. I'm not original. I steal things from people all the time. When you walk into a situation, do you want to be the thermometer or the thermostat? Right? Because the thermometer reacts to the temperature of the situation. The thermometer is like, okay, we're talking about negative things. I'm going to just jump in. I'm going to be, with the rest of the guys talking about, how my life is terrible, or I'm going to get excited. Where the thermostat controls the temperature and says, you know what, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to bring everybody down. I'm going to reframe the narrative to be something positive. And so for us as leaders, as we see situations of people struggling and they're lost and they don't have that initiative, like, what are we going to do different to help them rise up and get out of their own way? Those are the questions that we should be looking at ourselves and people and saying, okay, what sphere of influence do I operate in? And in that sphere of influence, am I the thermostat or am I the thermometer?
Can I take that one on? Because I have a couple of thoughts that show up for me there. No human being likes to be told what to do. We know that. That's not unique to me. That's not unique. Nobody likes to be told this is how you do it, and nobody likes to be directed at traffic. We've known that for years. Yet it becomes really easy to volley over our unsolicited thoughts and ideologies without permission. So how do we do that? A few things show up for me is, first of all, asking for permission. Hey, I have an observation. I have a thought. May I share it with you? If the answer is no, cool, you back off. Right? And I learned this the hard way, as many of us do. When you ask for permission and you're invited into the conversation, everything else shifts. You become curious. I never walked onto a job site and said, why the fuck would you put a light there? I became curious and like, I noticed you put the light over there. I don't think I would have had the same ideology or philosophies. So what is it that drove you to put it in that location rather than that location? And you become hyper curious and you ask questions. This creates connection, right? And once we got connection, then trust is fun. Once you get trust, you get everything. And how do you do that? You model the behavior. You talk about being a thermostat in the room. I love that, right? Yes, that's been brought up before, and it's such an impactful thing. So thank you for sharing it again. You have a choice, folks. How do you choose to show up? And also, by the way, for anybody out there, it's like, yeah, but if I do nothing, that's okay too. No. Doing nothing and not making a decision is a choice as well. So you choose to be the thermometer and you model the behavior. Okay, folks, here's what we're going to do. And not from an egotistical standpoint, I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to model it. Like whether we raise children, whether we build cultures in organizations, it doesn't matter. It's all the same shit. Don't ever ask somebody to do something you're not willing to do. Oh, go fix your bed. I can tell my 12-year-old kid to fix his bed. If I haven't fixed my bed, who the hell am I? Put your dish in the dishwasher. My sit on the counter. Well, who the hell am I to say that? And yet we do this in organizations all the time. Well, you should do it this way. I should. Pardon me, I should do what? Because sure, it is somebody else's rules and regulations. Just because you did it that way doesn't make it right or wrong. It makes it the way you did it. But we connect with people by asking questions, staying curious, and then model the behavior you want.
Absolutely. And in organizations, when you become big, right, and you're scaling out, it's like, how do you reach the people to like everybody is rowing in the same direction, or everybody has the same standard, right? I think I was listening to one of Nick Saban's old, conferences, and he was like, "No, we want to have team members on here that strive for a high expectation. The people that want mediocrity, it's like they don't fit in the culture because now you got one person running fast and the other person kind of slowing down." Because when we go to spring training, my job is to put the right people on the bus and get the wrong people off the bus. Right. And so, yeah, when you lean into that, you're like, okay, how do I set the example? Right. And then how do I get that trust factor that everybody else is kind of like, you know what? I identify or I like what he's seeing because it's going to add value to me.
Our earlier conversation was kind of talking a little bit about generational gaps. What's the difference between, someone who's maybe more experienced or has a different ethic versus the newer generations coming in? How do you advise project managers or businesses, et cetera, to bridge those gaps to build stronger connections between those large age gaps, whether it's, the younger or the older team members, um, especially when it comes to like team collaboration and trust building?
I love it. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that's one of the most powerful questions you can ask. And for me,
I do too. Yeah, I think it was a great one. I'm really glad that I brought it up. I appreciate that.
look, for me, it's the one word: curiosity. How do you bridge those gaps? You stay curious. I don't necessarily know how a 20-year-old thinks, but I'm going to make it my responsibility to take accountability to learn how that 20-year-old thinks by asking questions. And it starts simply by observing things. Hey, how does this person walk? How does this person talk? How does this person, carry themselves? What does they eat? You have to be hyper aware, observant, and then wholeheartedly, without an agenda, by the way, right? Know what non-agenda driven connection. Hey, man. Well, I noticed you got some pictures of a dog on your phone. You got a dog? Learn about the dog. Learn the dog's name. How did the dog come into orbit? How did you get into? Have you always been into dogs? And I'm not shoving something. I'm becoming curious. Oh, what else do you like? Why are you doing what you do? What brought you into this trade? What are your skill set? What do you think you're? Where do you want to go? It's question after question after question, and actually giving a damn. Not like, I'm going to go ask this question to this person to gain something because I want to know their thoughts, because then they're going to armor up and they're going to say, well, why are you asking me this? And the other thing for me is we lead with the hows, right? And the whats. What is it that made you do this? How do you think to do this? Not whys, but in construction, it's always like, why'd you do it this way? Why would you be so stupid to do it this way? Well, what why does? Why shuts my brain down right away? Why is making me armor up? Why is making me become defensive? Why did I put this light here? Well, because the drawing showed that. Well, then it's the stupid guys who drew the drawings wrong. That doesn't create connection. It creates the exact opposite. And now if I'm dealing with a 20-year-old, well, Jonathan's a dick. He came here and yelled at me for putting a light right where the drawing is. And so I don't know if that answered your question, JP, but to bring it full circle, it's staying curious and actually wholeheartedly giving a damn about the person in front of you without agenda and without intention to gain something other than human to human connection. Now I'm gonna say bonus to because for me it's always about food and drink. So if we can do it around coffee, right? If coffee's their thing, if we can do it around food, again, you have become hyper observant. I'm an espresso drinker. I drink coffee, right? So people will notice.
How many espressos have you had today?
3. That's my limit for the day is 3. But that's what it is, right? It's becoming hyper aware and then connecting through commonalities.
What do you think personality traits do, whether it's generational? Like, again, I'm not a doctor, but it's like some people are introverts, some people are extroverts, some people are a combination. I mean, those personality traits probably haven't changed much over the years, other than the amount of people who are now introverts or the amount of people that are, say, extroverts based on what society thinks, right? Like, the technology of the phone, we talk about kids and dating or kids at the dinner table. It's like they don't communicate with each other. They're all on their phones and they're literally like 3 feet away, but that's their space. That's what they're comfortable with. You and I, where I'm like, no, I actually got to shake somebody's hand. I like talking to somebody and figuring out what their mannerisms are and lean into the conversation and make eye contact. And some people are like, eye contact's like scary. They're looking into my soul and trying to judge me. Like, no, they're trying to connect with you. They're not judging you. And it's easier to hide behind something than be like, well, I got my point across. So there is, I think, some generational societal things that are basically influencing, but you've kind of heard the statement too, like people are either born a willow or an oak. Like you kind of have these natural characteristics, and the environment does either enhance those characteristics or sometimes modify. But I think the genetic makeup of you are who you are, and it's not always just a product of your environment. Because I'm a perfect example. I'm the oldest of 3 boys, and we are completely different, raised in the same house by the same 2 parents with the same set of rules. Like my wife and my sister-in-law is looking like, I don't even understand how these 3 are even brothers. Like they're so different. And so that for me is like, well, you're a product in your environment. And I'm like, kind of. Because if again, my 3 brothers, you would think we grew up in 3 different households based on how we act and respond to things.
Yeah, and I think that there's merit. Again, it depends how deep you want to go, but I believe in that too. There are some things that we can use the word genetics, that are ingrained in us. I believe in powers greater than you and I that, have purpose, that have a destiny and have a role for us that we don't even know. And then there's the environment. And what I mean by the environment is you can be who you can be. The challenge that I have is sometimes that we fall victim to the labels, because we live in a society that labels everything. Everything is a label. Well, you're this type of person and you're this type of person. Cool. I would challenge that with curiosity. Every human being is motivated by something. It becomes my job to become hyper curious to see what that thing is. Maybe it's, Matchbox cars. Maybe it's building out dinosaur structures. I don't know. But it is really interesting when you connect with people. And then it's like, well, are they an introvert? Maybe. Depends on the scenario. Did we label them an introvert and then they accept that introvertness? Maybe. I question everything, guys. That's who I am as a human being.
Well, and you see him in a profession, right? So steering this to like our professionals. So like my pastor is an introvert, but he can get on stage and deliver a message to 1,000 people. And you're just like, people are like, oh, wow. But if you were to have him on a one-on-one conversation, he's visibly uncomfortable just talking to another human, like in a personal space. And you just have to look at it and say, what characteristics was I blessed with? How do I basically foster those? How do I give back and add value to someone else that maybe they have different characteristics? And I think that's where, we're trying to basically bridge these generational personality gaps in business, in construction, where some people don't want to be a project manager. Some people don't want to be an engineer. Some people don't want to be a laborer, but like everybody ticks differently. And you just got to figure out, how do I build my team so I have the right players in the right position running the correct routes so that we can move the ball down the field.
And I want to jump in here because this strikes a chord, because it irks me a little bit. It happens all the time. This guy's a great foreman. I'm going to make him a project manager. Okay. Anybody ask him? Like, did we evaluate his skills? No, he ran a job great, and then he fails. And he's like, oh, he's fucking useless. We should never brought him in the office, because we didn't to be involved. We didn't foster that environment. We didn't check in. We said, you're a great foreman. Here's a laptop. Go run a job. What? Right? You're voluntold, because for a variety of different reasons. But I think that's one of the biggest pitfalls that exists in our industry.
You've got to understand. So I'll relate it back to some of the things like in my industry. So I more than 2 decades in the equipment rental industry. So we provided all the equipment that the trades needed, right? And there was a different mindset. So when we're in sales, we were just like, hey, it's how fast we got the equipment there. It was, did it break down? Did we service them? And how much did that unit cost that contractor? Like, we didn't even think about the productivity. Like, what's the labor productivity on the job, right? When lost time, like the mindset of the project manager, like they don't even care about the rate of the equipment. They're more or less like, how do I keep my crews working? So it's understanding the other person's lens and figuring out what motivates them And then I'll flip it really quick to what we did operationally. So we knew that when we delivered equipment to job sites, the catalyst was how well our drivers in our semi trucks could get the units there and everybody to be happy. Well, those orders would come in from the job site to a sales rep, and the sales reps would put it through operations. Hence, everybody would put it on. The driver would do the last mile and put it on. Well, if you don't understand what it's like to be in a 53-foot tractor trailer in downtown LA trying to make a U-turn at 9 a.m. on Sepulveda, you're putting in orders and putting in times and requests, and you don't have any idea what it's like. So I basically took my new reps and I said, before you can even take an order from your customer, you're going to start at 2:00 in the morning and you're going to ride with the drivers for 2 weeks. And you'll see why cross streets are important. Getting the extra detail in terms of what gate entrance of the job site do you want to come in so that they're not pouring concrete, right? Understand how you're transitioning information, whether it's enough or not enough, and how that affects other people within the organization so you can connect with them and build a better organization that services your stakeholders.
This one has to do with kind of maintaining morale and trust. So, especially in the industry of construction, things are hectic, crazy, busy. You're balancing this scale of high stress and high expectations. You know, the execution needs to be there, the deadlines need to be met. And with that can come inevitable stress. So, how, in your opinion, have you found success in or teaching others to find success in maintaining morale and trust in those situations?
And Jonathan, before you ask that, I'll have to basically shut down what we used to do. So JP, it used to be get a 24 pack of Budweiser and sit in the parking lot after and just relieve our stress together.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not sure that happens too much anymore, but
But what you're doing in
That was
that
a-
scenario, Scott, is you're connecting, right?
yeah.
That's the thing. And then once I have a bond and a trust with somebody, wow, morale's built. It's the same. So I tie it into sports, and it's interesting. I'll tie in a beer league, right? A hockey beer league. What do? You get a bunch of guys together. You skate around for an hour or so. Nobody gives a shit about the game. But what are we doing afterwards? It's about having a beer in that dressing room afterwards. And yeah, it's not supposed to happen anymore, and it still does. But what I'm getting at is that it's like what we're doing fundamentally is we're setting the expectations and boundaries. How do we get? What are our expectations? Well, I learn of our expectations because of the alignment, because of us hanging out and understanding each other. That a franchise sports team, they're in alignment. They know what our goals are. Our goals to win the Super Bowl. Fine. So what steps do we have to take to win the Super Bowl? And now we hold ourselves to high standards within the boundaries. I don't give a shit how we get there per se, so long as it's within the boundaries and the rules of regulations, which we define together. That's what builds morale up, not shoving something down somebody else's throat with some blanket sort of, look on a wall because it's a blanket cultural state. Here's our mission statement. What the hell's a mission statement? What does it actually mean? Because it means something different everywhere. But until we sit down and align our visions and our expectations, okay, cool. I do this. Look, whether it's with professional or even within sports teams that I coach, it's like, okay, boys, this is a true story, right? I coach 18-year-old athletes. We're in a tournament. And my vision of the tournament was very different. But I pulled our team together and was like, okay, folks, what's our vision of the tournament? Well, coach, we want to fucking win. Okay. I knew the metrics behind that, right? But what is it about the winning? Like, what does it actually look like for us to win? And we had to strip that down. I'm like, okay, so cool. If winning is the object, we all agreed that winning is the ultimate objective, then that comes without sacrifice. If you're not producing, you're out. If you're going to half-ass it out there, you're out. If you're not going to look after each other's back, you're out. Once we get the expectations, we get the boundaries. Here's the thing, no different than working in a professional environment. Here's the expectations of this job. We've got this task to do. It needs to be finished by the end of this week. How we get it done, let's co-create that reality. And then it's almost like self-policing. You hold each other the same standard. Dude, let's rock and roll. I'll use the electrician as an example, because if we're stripping wires, Some guys go through and strip wires and leave the strippings on the floor. Who's gonna pick that shit up? Well, the next guy. Dude, carry a box with you and strip it into the box. Mission accomplished, right? And then the whole team is doing that. Again, boundaries, expectations.
Well, that's huge. You say that too. Expectations, knowing what your rules of engagement are. Because on a team, let's say you have a team baseball, right? You got 10 guys that are on the field and another 25 that are in the bullpen, and everybody's still a team, right? Now, take to a commercial job site. I've been on projects where we had over 500 electricians on a project, right? We're building an NFL stadium. Okay, great. And I don't want to go down this rabbit hole, but you can sometimes have projects where the electrician, are they union or non-union, right? Are they moving together as a unit, right? Because sometimes you have in the same company the fabrication side and the install side, and they don't even get along. But yet we're all part of the same organization. So when you have this large scale type of project where you've got people flowing in and out, right, on a weekly or monthly basis, because Jonathan, it happens, right? I get a crew of guys in and they finish, and I get another crew of guys. You don't get the same people for the full season. It's like you're in it for a month and then they leave, and then you're going to inherit another batch of guys that are going to be there for another month. And so now you're like, do I rinse and repeat this whole cycle of going, what expectations are we setting when they come in? How are we holding each other accountable? What amount of trust am I giving them and empowerment? Those are all the things I think, as you've seen, Jonathan, like from a project manager to a foreman, right, to a project engineer. Like, how do you take that small team atmosphere where you have the same group of people where you move from job to job to now, let's say, scaling your projects where you're like, I've got to rotate people in that I don't have long sphere of influence on.
So the question is, how do we keep that momentum and that alignment?
Yeah. Like, how do you train new people coming in? Almost like, I don't want to use the military, but every 6 weeks you get a new set of people coming in for boot camp, and then you shove them off, and then you come in with another. So you're constantly getting new faces that have different characteristics, different life experiences, and we're trying to elevate them to the same expectation that we did with the crew that just left 6 weeks ago.
A few things show up for me. Okay. And the easiest way, I like metaphors and stories. The easiest way for me to describe it is a sports team. I think of, and I'm going to go hockey for a moment, but you think of, you have a coach on the bench, and then you have a captain, and you've got, alternate captains, right? What's the role of the alternate captains? The role of the alternate captains is to amplify the captain so that the captain can shine. And what's the role of the coach? The coach amplifies the captain. The captain amplifies the alternate captain. So it goes downstream. And then what happens when you hit these alternate captains? Well, their job is to amplify the rest of the folks in the team. So how do you do that? You got to have well-aligned folks that I can blindly trust and blindly rely on. And that only happens once we know what our goals and objectives and our expectations. Jonathan, you're the assistant captain, the alternate captain of this team. I don't care what metrics you use to get there, but here's the overarching message we want to demonstrate here. We have non-negotiable. I'll tell you this. Like, this is, I have 3 fundamentals that in every team is implemented, whether it's a sports team or a professional team, right? It's, don't be an asshole, don't half-ass it, and it's not about you. Those are the core values. Everything comes back to that. So people would fuck up like, dude, are you being an asshole right now? I'm not saying you are an asshole. I'm saying, are you acting like an asshole? Well, yes, no, I don't know. You are. So let's look in the mirror, right? Did you half-ass it? Don't half-ass it. Don't be an asshole. And it's not about you, because it's never about you. And the minute that gets recognized, everything on the project changes. Genetic wiring, the lenses through which we see life as human beings, is the forms of realities which we believe, and we believe those realities to be truths. But we're making it about us. The minute you have the self-awareness to remove that and make it about the other folks first, that's how you foster that transition, that turnover, that every 6 weeks they've got somebody else coming in. I make it about the folks coming in.
And you're building your brand too by doing that. Because if you're coming across somebody that's curious, right, that is keeping the thermostat around 69 degrees and doesn't fly off the handle because something didn't go their way, you now become an extension of that organization. And now you're building trust for that organization so that when people do, let's say, come out of one of the unions or the trades, they're trying to figure out, how do I get on that team, right? Sports teams, whether you whatever sport you play, there's certain legacy teams that people are like, I've always wanted to play for that team. Like, well, why? Well, because they have a high level of standard. They win. How do they win? They set structure. People that come into the organization, those who they draft, are required to level up to the standard that that organization and trust and curiosity built. And those who want to half-ass it, there's other teams that will give you a salary and maybe pay you more, but you will never be there in October. You're not going to be playing in January or February. It's like, yeah, man, that's where you want to roll, and you want to be the biggest fish in the smallest pond. Go for it. But there's a reason people have these posters on their wall.
Capstoning on what Jonathan said about, how you potentially can help still build that team when that team gets kind of rotated out constantly on large projects. I mean, consistency, that's also where legacy comes from, is like, you don't become a legend overnight. You don't become one of those like great known teams that everyone wants to be a part of overnight. It comes from being consistent throughout and building that legacy long term. And I think that even on construction sites, I think that becomes known, where it's like, oh, you get to work with, ABC's like, oh, I hear they're fantastic. Or I was on a project with them, I've been on projects with them on and off for the last decade, and every single time it's amazing because they've been consistent that whole time. And that's how you build that legacy, I think, too. What do you think about tech in construction, Jonathan? Is there, we are at there's a lot of change going on in a lot of industries. Construction is not immune to it, whether it's, new softwares or AI, what have you. Is there anything that you've seen that is actually that is resonating in like kind of the positive side for boosting productivity and supporting that team dynamic?
That's a heavy question to answer because I don't know what I don't know, and there's a lot of tech out there that I'm not even familiar with. Here's my philosophy on technology: is that I guess the word is acquiesce to technology at times, where sometimes I reluctantly accept it because it's a tug of war for me. Technology is a tool. Some of us lean into it as a vice, right? Some of us lean into our phones as escape mechanism, but technology, whatever technology that is on a construction site, ultimately is a tool. No different than a hammer and a screwdriver. I'm not going to give somebody a hammer and ask them to smash in a nail. It's not the right tool for the application. So when embraced and when taught, a tool can be very advantageous, right? Look at the drill. Look at how the cordless drill changed the industry, right? I can't imagine. I can imagine because it did it for so long. But the days of screwing a screwdriver, right? It's like, oh my gosh! And the long term, we now know the long term effects of it. Again, a drill is technology. It's a tool. You have to learn how to use the tool. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. I don't know that technology for me is a positive or negative. It's an and conversation. Technology could be advantageous and it needs to be respected. It's a tool and it needs to be understood.
Yeah. And it doesn't need to be forced upon. Like in our industry with logistics, right? We're disrupting the legacy model of transportation and construction, right? We're utilizing the consumer side of crowdsourcing, like our Ubers and our Lyft and our Grubhub, which people are familiar with. And we're figuring out, it's like, how do we do that within the industry to move equipment materials? And for a dispatcher or a purchaser or somebody, they're used to picking up the phone, calling somebody, waiting on hold, or sending an email, getting information back. When it's like, we need to move faster. And if there's a way to basically hit the easy button quicker and get what you need, it leaves you more time to be more productive elsewhere, to, like, let's say, engage with your team and figure out why we're putting the lights here, than worrying about, hey, I got to go back to the office and I'll sit on hold and see if I can schedule this next run. It's like, no, this stuff is at your fingertips. Let's let's get uncomfortable and elevate, but let's not get to the point where we lose, where if the technology doesn't work or it doesn't have exactly what I need, you still go back to the models where I'm going to call Jonathan on the phone and I'm going to have a conversation with a human and we're going to figure this out and we're going to come up with another solution and we're going to continue with our day.
It's an interesting thought in that I feel like technology has potentially two halves when it comes to construction. You have the physical technology and you have the more visceral, the software kind of technology. And I think that one is much more quickly adopted than the other. Because I think of construction folks and how proud are they about the tools that they use. Or it's like, ooh, do you have, I'm excited that they're coming out with this new tool, this new updated model of a drill or a hammer or an excavator or whatever. That stuff seems to be like pretty quick to adoption because they can feel the difference. They're like, okay, I am more productive. But when you get to that software side where it's more intangible, I find that there's a lot more hesitation, a lot more reluctancy, a lot more unwillingness to listen or learn when it comes to softwares, even if they're just as impactful, if not more so, in certain circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, because construction is a touch and feel industry. So if I can't touch and feel it, is sometimes our brains make that mean that it's not worthy, right?
And Scott, I'm thinking of you a little bit and some of our equipment rental partners and the systems that they still use from a software perspective and how incredibly outdated they appear when looked through today's lens.
Yeah, I mean, they're using stuff like, that's bulletproof, can't, like, be hacked, because it's it's similar to, like, the IRS with the Cobalt system. It's like, you're still using what? Right? But it's like, yeah, it's indestructible, can't hack it, but when you go into their, locations and you look behind the monitor, you're like, "Wow, man, that looks like an Atari, but it works for you, and cool." But on their personal lives, like I said, they're booking Ubers, they're booking DoorDashes, they use ChatGPT, they use all this stuff, and sometimes it's not even the individual using it. It could be a corporate initiative, like, hey, in order to restructure this thing, this is a heavy lift. Like, we're not going to rewire the inside of an aircraft carrier. It's like, okay, it is what it is right now. But yeah, to do the adoption and start to advance and saying, hey, we've got to get better, we got to elevate. It reminds me of, like, my what I'm dealing with my parents. They're building a house, and, my dad and I can look at plans, legacy architect, where the lines and we're like, "Okay, I see it." My mom, she's like, "I can't see it." You're like, "It's on the thing." She needs, like, a virtual reality CAD where she can feel like she's standing in the kitchen and knows what the cabinet colors look like in order to basically move forward. And my dad's just like, "I'm just gonna build this thing and, like, move up here, and you can come when you wanna come." 50 years of marriage and stuff like that. But you have two different individuals where she needs the technology, she needs the software to visualize and see, where sometimes, like, I'm like, nope, just give me the concept, I'll figure it out. So it's that you can't drive it too fast and you can't force it. They've got to come to their own conclusion, like, wow, okay, this is actually adding value and I want to adopt. I want to move through this. But I think a lot of times in construction or even other industries, we're so stuck with familiarity that we're like, nope, this is how we do it. This works for me. If it's not broken, let's not touch it. Culture takes a long time, sometimes a long time to change. Unless for me, I go down to the human emotion. It comes back to two factors at the root. It's like, you're going to move based on either money or fear. Like, those are the two things that are going to drive you. Last podcast we talked about, go to the doctor, got to lose weight. You're like, yep, doc, give me a pill. I think I'll go to the gym. I'll modify my diet. I'm good for now. If you come back 6 months later and it says, you're going to die if you don't do this, you're like, okay, I guess I'm stopping to do it. And then same thing with money. Well, if you don't want to do it because you're not fear of death, how about I give you $10 million? Okay, yeah, I'll do it. You're like, well, how do you fit somewhere in the middle where you're doing it because it's the right thing or you really want it? And it goes back to the gym thing we talked about. When I go work out, people ask me like, hey, I want to get bigger. What do I want? How do I do that? And I'm not a personal trainer. I just kill myself to stay strong. And I say, well, first, like, how much effort do you want to put into this? I need to know that. Is it 10%, 50, 100%? Like, what are you willing to give? And then once we establish that, then I usually ask them 2 questions. Well, do you want to look good naked or do you want to be able to move a house? Like, because those are 2 different training mechanisms. Like, one's more in the kitchen and one's more pushing yourself. So once I have your level of intent and I understand your why, what you're trying to achieve, yes, then I can help you understand how to get where you want to go. But I don't know, man. I don't have all the answers. You got to tell me what you're willing to sacrifice and what you want to achieve. And I can help give you a perspective based on my experience and hope you trust my advice. Outside of that, good luck to you. And I think we can use that the same thing in businesses and culture, where as leaders, we have to come in and understand what our team is going through, what they want to achieve, give them the tools, resources, and empowerment to succeed, and then get out of their way.
When it comes to mental wellness and creating a positive work culture, how can companies in the construction industry prioritize employee well-being while also driving business success?
These are great questions. Like, there's no short answer to that either, right? The answer is it depends, right? Because some folks are very open and willing to talk, and others are not. And one thing I think that's very important for leaders is the ability to pivot, right? And understand, take a temperature reading on sort of what's going on. Something as simple as being in the same space as somebody and just looking at them, hand on a shoulder or whatever that is for that person, like, I got you. That could be enough. And for those who are ready and willing, it's really becoming into their space to say, holy shit, man, it sounds like you got a lot going on. I'd like to learn more, and truly being there. And then again, guys, for me, it's the curiosity, it's the connection, because it's all one and the same. Once I have that connection, I can with permission, I can provide resources. Look, I don't know all the answers, but I do know somebody who could help you with that. Are you open to it? Right? Not just saying, oh, here's an EAP number, go call this number or go do this. No, that might not be what that person needs. Right? Or, we hear the old adage of, yeah, go take some time off and then get your shit together and come back. Well, what does that even mean? That person doesn't even know what that means. That we've all lived it. Like for some guys, it's they'll literally go home and, drink themselves silly. So that doesn't serve well either. We need to check in on each other, right? It's not checking in on them. It's like, I'm checking on you, man. You didn't look okay today. What's really going on? There are so many different facets and ways to support mental well-being. And I think I'm going to just come full circle with it and say, you can only ever take somebody as far as you're willing to go yourself. So that gets down to the training that you do, working with professionals, working with coaches, working with a variety of different realms. Because you need to know how to read the situation. You need to know how to ask the right questions and when to ask the right questions. No different than any other relationship in life. There are times there's relationships in life where it's like, it doesn't really matter what I'm going to say right now. There's nothing that's going to convince you, and I don't know, there's nothing that's going to give you a different perspective. So what's the best thing for me to do is walk away and revisit it. Whether that's with a kid or an adult, somebody who's freaking out. The worst thing somebody's going to, oh, Colin, why don't you just calm down? Oh yeah. How well do you think that's going to work, man? Rather than just saying, look, I want to know more about this. This doesn't appear to be the right time. So I'm going to come back to this at a later time. Well, I just demonstrated to them that A, I care, I care about them. And guess what happens? I didn't armor up. I didn't volley in. I didn't like go to war. Instead, I did the other thing. I said, when you're ready, I'm here for you.
Yeah, and it requires the leaders too that can assess it, because you might have a group of people that have the best intentions of wanting to help, but they're not equipped. They don't know. Like someone that's having a panic attack, they want to be like rub their shoulders and be like, it's okay, it's okay. And they think they're actually helping, right? By being very supportive. But that individual doesn't need that. They need everybody to kind of step away and maybe one person put their forehead to the other and say, I'm going to breathe with you. Let's just slow it down. Let's just sit here together and breathe. Not four people rubbing your back and say, hey, we got you. We got you. It's no one's fault. They're just not equipped. You got to put the right person in the right timing to be able to assess the situation so you can help them move through it, not just to it.
For the younger professionals that we were kind of talking about before, those entering the workforce, are there any key pieces of advice that you'd want them to really try and take to heart as they start developing their own careers in the industry?
Thank you for asking this question. And it might piss some people off. It's going to be two things. Listen to learn. Listen to learn as much as you can. And I don't give a shit what you do. Just don't half-ass it. That's it. You do those two things, and God, the universe, whatever power you believe in, will make the rest happen. Control the things you can control. Listen to learn what you can learn, and give it everything you got. If that means you got to go and get coffee, then be the best damn coffee go-getter there is. And make it an experience for people. Because the experience is what people remember. Everything in life for me is the experience. And not about you, the experience you want to leave for others. Fucking go get coffee and make sure that, I don't know, like put your flair on it. I can give people so many different ideas, but just all I'm going to say is listen to learn and don't half-ass it.
It is. And you mentioned something about like a legacy. There's a book called The Dash. I can't remember who the author is. Have you guys heard of it? So the premise of The Dash is like you go to a cemetery, right? And you see all the headstones. And you're like, do you remember the name or the dates? Or I think what the book says is it's not the name and the date that people do remember. It's the dash. It's what you did with your life in between those two series of numbers that people are going to remember. And so to your point, if you're going to be the best damn coffee, catcher that you can, like do it so that people will be like, you know what? Even on my worst day, JP came in with a positive attitude, was the thermostat, handed me a coffee and got me out of my mess and gave me just that 1 to 2 minutes that I needed to reset myself. And just be that person. Be the brightest light and sometimes the darkest room.
Do you have any stories of anything? Is there anything super weird or funny that you've ever found in a wall? Because I hear that a lot of times, like you like find things hidden in walls from construction past or what have you.
The answer is hell yes. I'm formulating my brain because everybody got different interests. I mean, I find interest in opening up walls and finding newspaper that's still intact, that's 70, 80, 90 years old. I'm like, holy shit, that's cool. And you read that, God, that stuff to me is cool. There's also, it's like when you open up a wall and you're and this is true too. Like when you open up walls, you're like, holy shit, this is a 100-year-old home. Look at these 2x6s that they've been scorched. There's a history here, and then you find out, and you backtrack and like, holy crap, there was a fireplace here, and it must have caught fire, and I don't know, it connects me to the world differently. When you're digging for buildings, and all of a sudden you hit something, and you're like, what the hell is this? Is like when we've hit foundations of holy shit, there was a house here, and you're 20, 30 feet down into a hole, and you hit something that was like, wow, talk about cool settlement, right? We found a car that was really neat. Oh gosh, that was, I mean, neat and weird because you're like, what's the story behind here, right? Like who died in here, who was murdered, and the car was buried, and so there's kind of cool stuff, right?
Yeah, when you're in excavation, you start excavations, you get some weird stuff down there because again, people in the ground. But with like walls, you only have so much between, joists. But yeah, people, you haven't found like, a bag of cash or anything that somebody hid in a wall, right? Or
Nope.
anything like that,
I
right?
mean, more recently.
Not that he'll tell us about.
He's all
No,
no.
He doesn't want that IRS man coming after him.
Well, I mean, I think in recent, I guess, technological times, you find an iPhone, right? And when you turn on the iPhone, you're like, whoa, there's some shit in here that was hidden up in the ceiling behind this wall for a reason, and this is why this building was left the way it was, right? So again, everybody got their own flavor of what's cool. You find a lot of shit you're probably not supposed to find.
Well, great, Jonathan. And Scott, you too, as always, really appreciate everyone's time. And it was really fun getting to know some of your philosophies and principles, Jonathan. I felt like we got a lot of good insights this time.
Cool. Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Yep. Thanks, Jimmy. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. So we'll see you all around.
Thanks, guys.
Well, everyone, that is a wrap for today's episode of Beyond the Build. We took away some real valuable lessons and insights, and I hope that you did as well.
If you enjoyed this episode, we would ask that you subscribe so you can never miss an update. If you're a thought leader looking to innovate in the construction industry, let's talk. We'd love to connect and hear your thoughts.
You can find Beyond the Build on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, plus anywhere else that you listen. And if you'd like to learn more about how Faro is changing logistics in the construction industry, please visit our website at faronow.com.
Once again, thanks for tuning in, and until next time, be humble, serve others, and make an impact.